And hello, this is Chris Parker with the Business Simplicity Podcast. And I have talked with Maarten Mantje from The Only Constant. And with the backdrop of taste testing his gin, Stoker's gin, which he created the recipe with AI a number of years ago. And he also tasted some slow gin that I make at home. So we've been drinking through this conversation. But the essence of this has been around the impact of AI on organizations, how to adopt AI in organizations, what that means about knowing yourself and knowing the possibilities of technology. So while we had fun with gin, we also got deep into what AI is really doing in our lives and in businesses. So I mean, Maarten, why would this be valuable? Like what insights would they get if they listen to this episode?
Yeah, so in essence, the thing we talked about most, and the thing you will get out of it, is that go out, dream big, and start building small things, and you will find that both are actually quite possible. So dream big, start building, and you will see that new things will happen.
Welcome to the Business Simplicity Podcast, where Chris Parker explores how leaders cut through complexity to accelerate strategy, execution, and growth with calm, clarity, and confidence.
And welcome back to the Business Simplicity Podcast. I'm having a conversation and I'm going to be drinking some booze with Maarten Mantje, who is a founder of The Only Constant. And we'll get into what The Only Constant is about as far as like an innovation, digital change advisory practice that he has here in the Netherlands, maybe even a little bit about his background. And he has created with some fellow co-founders a gin brand called Stoker's, and that is stokers.nl. And I was really captivated by that because as we've been working together in the strategy and adoption subgroup of the Gen AI Circle, he mentioned in passing that he used AI to create gin. And of course, that perked my ears up as I also make a sort of gin, at least a gin infusion or maceration that we're going to get into called slow gin. So I hope we can pour some gin soon and get into the conversation. But before that, Maarten, thank you for joining, my friend. And can you share maybe just a little bit about your story and where the only constant came from, and then how that brought you into the world of gin?
Booze, yeah.
Booze. Yes.
Booze. Well. First, thanks for having me. Really, really nice. Always a pleasure to talk about transformation, about AI, and particularly about booze. Um, One small thing for the Stokers. I'm shamelessly promoting the brand. Stokers has two O's rather than one, which you would expect in Dutch. So it has two O's. A little bit about me. Let's go way, way, way back. So I have a master's degree in management and organization, which I did nothing with for like 25 years. Thought it was a complete waste of time. Why did I bother? Why didn't I become a designer or something else? And then after my education, went into working for digital agencies, had a startup, a bit ahead of the pack. So we can have a conversation about that if you want to, because I have some horror stories there. Worked in digital agencies in advertising, mostly as a strategic planner. And one of the frustrations I always had is as a planner, you always need other people to do stuff. So it's so I can think, I can write, I can create beautiful decks and then hope for the best and be like, Pinocchio's helper explaining where to go, and nothing happens. And then this thing, generative AI, came along, and it showed me that I could make more than I expected. I had a similar experience with 3D printing before that. So the idea that you can create physical stuff. So I'm always kind of fascinated by making stuff, probably mostly because I am. I was so used to always needing people to do stuff. And the gin basically came from the same ambition or need or whatever you want to call it. So we were three friends on a terrace in Austria, and the tonic ran out, and the gin was disgusting. And one of the friends, who is a chemist, said, "I can do better." And I said, "Let's make that into a product, but we need to make sure that we will sell at least one bottle legally." And then the problem started, and so finding the right flavor, finding the right recipe, understanding ingredients, and all that was quite a challenge. But getting it into a store legally was way more time consuming, at least. And obviously, we didn't start out with a with an AI recipe, but again, so we had the first two flavors, which are still available, are based on tea, basically. So there's one in green tea, which is kind of round and soft, and the other one is based on black tea, which is stronger and has a peppery flavor to it. But then basically the same thing happened. So my chemist friend, he's not the one to talk about to talk about flavor. So I was always curious about, so what does spring taste like, or what does Amsterdam taste like? And the only one thing I would get from him was like a blank stare, and what are you talking about? And so there was this ambition to have a different way of talking about flavor. And so I think 2 years ago or so, 2.5 years ago, there was this tool called, can't even remember. Well, it's a predecessor of Perplexity, and so you would. Well, can't remember. And but it would just take the question you ask and help you understand what the question behind the question was, and break it all down. And then so I figured, let's see if I can make a distiller's recipe for a gin that tastes like the Dutch summer. And before I knew it, I was in a conversation with this machine about, okay, what is a gin recipe, which is kind of clear, and then what is the Dutch summer, and well, it's an interesting question in itself, but what kind of flavors connect to that? And then after that, it became kind of more interesting, because the whole distilling of the gin basically is kind of a violent and aggressive process. So there's a lot of flavors that don't survive the distilling process. And I found myself in a conversation with this machine about, and it understood that the process and was violent. So some flavors would be more dominant after distilling than others. And so it was like super super weird experience. But after a couple of hours, I had a recipe which was kind of weird or not correct is better, on the amount of ingredients, but the flavor profile, the way the ingredients match together, was super interesting. So we spend the weekend distilling a very small batch, which is highly illegal, but let's not talk about that. And it turned out to be actually surprisingly good. And so we experimented a bit more, and not on, so not on the level, we didn't add or leave out ingredients. We only experiment with the amounts of the ingredients, and something really really interesting and good came out. So it's a really soft. And so it's one of the, but you will taste in a second. It's one of the few gins I actually like straight, because normally most commercial gins you drink, they kind of hide the flavor by adding a lot of tonic and some other stuff in it. But this is pretty nice. Actually, it's quite good straight. And so I don't know, we talked about it a bit and didn't really know what we should do with. And then through a former colleague, I could get in touch with the global master distiller. I think her job title was of one of the biggest gin brands in the world. sent her a bottle and took a while. But she sent us a message back that she really liked it and she enjoyed the flavor and shared it with the team and loved the story. So we figured let's just make it and see what happens. And so this was it's been on the market for I don't know, a bit over a year and a half now. It was, I think, one of the first gins in which the recipe was created by an AI, but that in itself, I don't think that is that interesting. The thing I liked it, so a bit in hindsight, but the thing I found most magical about it is that two guys and a machine can actually create something which is liked by the one defending the flavor of the biggest gym brand in the world. So like all
Yeah.
cards are the game changed. And for me that was and still is like amazing is we find ourselves in a time now where this actually can be done, which is it's mind blowing to me
Yeah.
and we had a clear idea on what I had a clear idea on what I wanted. We had a clear idea on what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what's not so good. And so we basically we could brief and review and create create the stuff in between, of course. But the fact that two of us and a machine can make something which
Yeah.
is liked by someone who actually knows their shit, it's super
It's incredible. I
fascinating.
mean, the knowledge, just the raw volume of knowledge that's at your fingertips, and you can actually chat and talk to it and
Yeah.
craft and create. And what I loved about it is that you started with an abstract, very human. You wanted something that tastes like Dutch summer.
Yeah.
Which of course then you had to define that, I guess, in some way. Like, well, what is Dutch summer? And then go down that. With the decisions you made with the quantities and stuff, was that a bit heretical? Meaning, did you break some long-standing industry views that you put way too much something and it was unexpected, or do you think there's not so
No,
many
so
rules like that in the gin world?
uh yeah, so the main thing it's pretty strong on strawberries, and so the thing that make it Dutch according to the machine and is strawberry mint, which kind of makes sense, and so it's a soft and gentle strawberry minty gin. Problem with strawberry is you need large quantities to have the flavor in there after
Mm.
distillation. So this would be so if this had to be a commercially viable product and we would need to live from the revenues, we would never have made it like this because it's like it's
All right.
the
Okay.
margins are super thin and you could not if we had to make this at scale we would have a huge problem. So commercially it's not that
Hmm.
that interesting. Still, it's possible, but we make very little money on each bottle.
Oh, so do you
But
think
the
that
thing,
it could be that the just the scale economics keeps some of the major players from doing things that taste better? Maybe that's interesting.
there could be, but there's a physical problem as well. So if you could obviously you could fake it with artificial strawberry flavor, but if you want to, so this is all made with organic strawberries, and you just there is not enough space in, or there's hardly enough space in the distilling kettle to have all the strawberries in there. So there's some other limitations
Okay.
as well,
Okay. This is
and
some
so
real
so there's
physical. Yeah.
yeah, so
And
so an old school problem.
and to plug it as well, Stokers.nl with two O's, and there's the three brands. There's organic green or organic black, as you mentioned, and now Dutch Summer. And I have Dutch Summer
Dutch summer.
here in front of me that
I
I've
have
not
Dutch
yet
summer
cracked.
here.
I'm going to start cracking it, but um, I had not expected you to advise you can just drink it straight. I still have like residual nightmares of my teenage self out camping, and my friend Garth and I stole a bottle of gin and yeah, puked for the rest of the night, and it was based on gin. So I have this residual.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
So my
but let's overwrite that memory with
yeah.
um
I have the same a similar experience with rum. So I have a problem with the rum.
So,
But
what I have in front of me, I have a bottle, your bottle of Stoker's Contemporary Gin Dutch Summer, 44%. I have a glass. I have a bottle of tonic, and I have some ice. How would you like me to just straight into the?
straight in, not too cold, because then you will lose the flavor.
Ah, okay.
Smell it.
Yeah. And I don't really have a tumbler or something. So the best I could find without going into
No,
the
that's
attic
fine.
was a glass,
Yeah.
kind of maybe Dutch terrace glass.
Yeah. And you gave yourself a pretty decent serving, I see.
Ah, well, freshness. It just screams freshness to me. I mean, it's like, it's not overwhelming. It's not overpowering. Sort of citrusy to me.
Yeah.
Maybe lime in there. I'm not picking up any strawberry. Nothing strawberry going on for me
Yeah.
at this moment. Is there? Yeah, I get. And also I'd ask why gin and not Genever, not Geneva, because I know with Geneva, just
No,
happened in Austria on the terrace.
no, that's the honest story. If no, I don't think it could ever been Geneva, because my personal preference, I think the younger Geneva is actually not that nice. It's I I don't like it at all. And the older Geneva, which is super nice, but it takes aging, and
Hmm,
gin does not.
okay. Yeah, you said you
There's
can make this
just
in a weekend. Even I didn't know that. I imagine there was
yeah.
some
And
magical mystical.
it will need some time to I don't know what the English term for it, but in Dutch you say huwen. So the flavors need to kind of blend together a
Yeah.
bit, and
And you just
so
is it I have no idea how to drink gin. So I'm just gonna drink it.
yeah.
Whoa. That does not hit like gin.
No.
So it is very, very soft until it's not.
Yeah.
It's very, very soft, hits the palate, and then it kind of explodes through your nasal cavity. It's like
Yeah.
a flavor boost.
Yeah.
There's these Chinese flowers that are edible that you can eat. You put them on your tongue, and after a while it just goes and it grows in this really
Yeah.
citrusy flavor. And that's the sensation I just had. It was like totally unexpected. You eat this little
Cool.
flower bulb and then it just explodes your head.
Yeah.
And this was like, okay, I took the taste and I was like, well, it's hardly even alcohol then. It just kind of flowed
Yeah.
over the tongue and it was, and then I guess it hit the back of the mouth and then it came forward. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa. And
Yeah.
wow, really nice. And
Yeah. But still it is
drinkable without tonic, and that, yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and many variations of hard liquor, they have this feeling that if you drink it, you will just feel it going down.
yeah.
That's not so much here. So it's actually it's kind of it's super dangerous. So if you have a bottle on the table and a set of shot glasses, you might be in trouble. But so it's. I think we completely succeeded in making a gin which is nice and
And
drinkable
was
just
that
by
a
itself.
design criteria when you came in and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
started
yeah,
chatting with the
yeah,
machine? You wanted it
yeah,
drinkable
yeah,
and soft.
yeah. So make it not disgusting,
Yeah. And
which
also
is
not cold. So like vodka, if you
yeah.
freeze vodka, of course that makes, I think, for me easier to drink a little bit. But you said just drink this room temperature.
Yeah, so if you drink it straight, so problem with or the problem. So one of the things that happens when you drink stuff cold, that the flavors kind of disappear to the
Yeah.
background. So the colder it gets, the less you taste, which is a good thing if you have disgusting booze, but not so good if you have nice booze.
Yeah.
So
No.
you can
Yeah.
that's why there's a lively discussion still after hundreds of years on whether you should drink your whiskey with ice or not.
Yeah.
And
No, nice.
I
Well, I'm a Jack and Coke guy, so I'll leave that to the side. But um what I do with gin is heretical. I take gin, I mix it with horrible, nasty berries, and then I put
yeah.
other
But
herbs in it.
if I may, you should
Yeah.
take a second sip and
Oh,
see what you think now. because now the palate is used to the strong alcohol. You should taste more now.
I still have those Chinese flowers in my mind because it's like dancing on my
Which is
tongue.
cool. I'm
It's
curious
like,
to see what they are.
it's like dancing on my tongue, and then it doesn't have the I don't want to call it a shock, but the after wave.
Yeah.
It's smoother. It's certainly drinkable. I have to play volleyball tonight, so I can't drink this whole bottle. Or maybe I can. It'll make it
Yeah,
taste.
see what happens. You might fly.
Mm. It's just so nice. I expect gin to be like, I don't know, like
Mean.
floor cleaner, like something that you would that
Yeah.
you have to like power your way through. And this is just drinkable. And I absolutely look forward to sitting on a terrace on a canal in a Dutch summer and drinking this with you.
Exactly. A couple of more months and then we're there. And
yes, absolutely. So yeah, my story with gin, which is also why I picked up, is actually slow gin, and you should have a bottle nearby. And slow gin will absolutely destroy the flavor of your gin. So I learned this when I was working with Lease Plan many years ago. There's a number of British guys, Tim Pike, Tim Shoebridge, Graham Moss, Kevin Flood, many others, but particularly Tim Pike, who's just an absolute Englishman. And if your drink is based on Dutch summer, sitting in a terrace, slow gin, I imagine it as in an English autumn, pseudo rainy, muck in the air, mist, cold, maybe even sitting in some bog, like waiting to shoot some pheasant or something. It's and then you have this flask of stuff that that would be slow gin. And slow gin is let's call it an infusion. It's the blackthorn berry, the slaydorn berry, and the berry of the blackthorn berry is called a sloe, SLOE. And the traditional recipe is just that. It's gin, and it's the worst tasting, nastiest, cheapest gin you can, because you're not going to taste the gin. You will not taste gin in this. And you say you have this 5-liter demijohn bottle, so there's a lot less chemistry going on. What I do is basically fill half the bottle with berries, and I pick it every year with my family. You clean them, you poke them. The traditional, everything's very traditional in English lore. You should have like a silver fork, and they have these. I just
nice.
I just knife them.
I love that.
Yeah, there's a whole thing about it, and then yeah, they even have these like silver grape scissors at some restaurants. I love him.
You should do that. It's super important.
It's yeah, exactly. And sugar and time. And so you have to leave it a long time. Now, what I do is a little bit perverse, that I like a little bit of flavor. So I put a couple cloves, kruidnagel in there, and then just a little chunk of a cinnamon stick. And it's just enough to give it something else for me. Yeah. And I have tasted like retail mass market slow gin, and it's just not as nice. And so, because I don't know, maybe it's because I use more sugar or whatever, or because I have these other spices in there. I also, as I mentioned, I'm a Jack and Coke guy. I also
it can't be the silver scissors.
Yeah. Well, I also have drinking my slow gin with Coke as well, and so it tastes like and that really just flips them over. Like, what? You did what? You put in what? And you put it in what? Like, no, you silly American. And but hey, I like it. And I probably come out with maybe 30 bottles a year. It's a family tradition. We go pick it. We do the work, and then I after the year I decant it from the big demijohns, and then I fill those up again, and I just love giving them away. Like, so this afternoon, my auto mechanic Mouse, Boss Mouse, they had moved location. It's Christmas, so I got my APK, my annual car checkup, and it's bring them a gift. Maybe it was because I was going to have this conversation with you and I had it on top of my mind, but it's just lovely and people seem to like it and they drink it and sometimes they ask for more. So I'm
Super
curious what you
curious.
think.
But how long before you put it in the bottle?
Over a year. So it's
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
demijohn for the official recipes say 2 to 3 months, but I go over a year.
Yeah.
And then after the year, I put it in the bottle. And if you hold it up to the light, you can see I put a couple berries in there to keep it
Yeah.
going. That's just
Yeah.
pure ornamental as far as I can tell. But it's I have some that are like 10, 15 years old. And it doesn't get better with age, So I think
No.
after 3 or 4 years, yeah, you got to drink it. And it's just something that, because in preparation for this is, the berries themselves are unedible. They're just super sour.
Yeah.
I don't even think the birds like them. But in, say, ancient historical England, because it was so plentiful that they did stuff with everything they could grab, and then this is something that they created with it. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I love it. So I'm curious what your experience is.
Can I open it?
You may open it, and
It survived an accident, so it should be good. It's nice and thick.
no AI involved.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Do you smell any gin in that at all?
No, it's more like not at all. No, it's not that alcohol-y even. The clover is there for sure. It's nice, very sweet,
Sweet,
dangerous.
very.
Because this is like half gin, half
It's pure gin.
dairy, so it would be like around 20% or so.
Well,
If you
no,
ever tested?
well, okay. I think the liquid is pretty much pure gin because the berries don't dissolve or anything. Because when I decant it, the berries are still there. So this is just pure gin infused with slow
I
berries,
really
sugar.
like the clover in it.
Yeah.
I think it otherwise it would be less interesting. It's kind of I really and it's very wintry. So we cover the whole
Yeah.
year, right?
That's what
So
I
we
say.
have
This is
summer and
not the
winter
Dutch
and
summer. This is not the Dutch summer.
and
This is something you do when it's cold.
if you would see consumption of spirits as a continuum, we would be at the opposite side. So you would be winter heartland, and I would be summer on a terrace, and
Yeah.
so
We got
we
it. We
cover
got it
well.
all covered.
But it's nice. It's really nice.
I find it very easy
Would
to
be
drink.
lovely with some blue cheese as well.
Yeah. Well, it could be a dessert type
Yeah. Yeah.
wine. It's not quite brandy like.
No, it's way softer. It's nice.
Yeah. And in the Netherlands, the Slador and the blackthorn bushes are not easy to find. So I have even used some like government maps and stuff to try because everything is labeled in the Netherlands. It's
Yeah.
overly
Yeah.
overly curated
That-
country, and so
That's who we are.
I
Yeah.
figured out where some of these groves are. I did in here in Almere plant some trees myself, and as Almere does, they turn that into a canal. So it's all those trees were lost shortly after that. So
Yeah, nice. Liqueur.
I think let's dive past it, and of course we can keep drinking as we go, and maybe touch on the essence of what you brought up, meaning two guys in a machine were able to make something of a unique quality that even impressed, a global expert on the subject. And for me, and maybe this is what you do with the only constant, with innovation and digital change and AI advisory. Share a little bit more about what you do there. But the biggest opportunity and for people, I think, and the biggest threat is two guys in a machine that are able to do something that a legacy organization is, well, for whatever reason, unable even to think about, that they're out there, they're doing this thing that they've done for 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. And then somebody shows up and says, yeah, well, what about this? And they can just take a huge chunk right out of your business, or create something amazing, even as a hobby. But it's for me, it's democratizing creation. It's liberalizing your ability to make.
Yeah.
So why don't we just, open up that Pandora's box
Yeah.
and swim around in
Yeah.
there. And how are you helping organizations with that? What's your vision on that?
Well, if it's okay, I might want to take a small step back. So one of
Sure.
the things that uh, this so something I realized way later, but this what we did is basically cheating, right? So there's nothing new; it's just faster. And so we were able to skip a lot of steps because we had access to a machine that helped us take steps faster than we could ever do if it was just the two of us. And so the thing that differentiated, so the things that were most important in this the creation of this recipe were knowing what we wanted and deciding whether we found it or not. So it's briefing and reviewing. And uh, I use Stokers mainly as a lovely side project. Love to talk about it, but it's also my marketing lab basically for the only constant. So everything I can't sell or I think I should sell and need a market for that, we just create it in Stokers and see what happens. So it's super forgiving. I'm the client and the contractor. So it only fails when I decide it fails. So it's super open and simple. So one of the other things we did about 2 years ago now, I think, we created a fully autonomous social media department, and it's still live, and it's so the progress of AI. I made it into something which is, well, it I would never publish it like that if I made it now and it needs some love and attention. But if someone wants to look at it, it's Stokers at Instagram, and this was created over 2 years ago, and we never looked at it again. So or never touched it again. That's better. So
Mm.
it's fully autonomous. Post 7 times a week on part on X and part on Instagram. It has three clear concepts or formats, if you will, and so it started out similarly. So there's just the three of us. We have no time because it's a side project and we have no money, so we can't afford anyone, or we don't want to spend any money on the brand, so we can't afford anyone. So what we did there basically is just recreate a social media agency. So it has a boss, and it has a strategy planner, it has a researcher agent, and it has a copy agent, there's a design agent, a PR, a project manager agent, and a data science agent. And we created this fully autonomous department, which has clear roles, and the roles have tasks, and they review each other, and they give feedback to each other, and which just runs autonomously on Instagram and X. And one of the things I found fascinating about that, and that's all in the same line, and was taught us a lot, is that we tend to think about change and especially AI in a sense we try to optimize from a task perspective. So I write emails, can't I do that faster? I do research, can't I do that faster? But I was kind of interested in if I would just start at the other side. So if I automate the whole department, can I learn something from what I definitely should do and definitely should not leave to the machines? And so by automating a department and making it fully autonomous, and I literally only see what is published after it's published, and occasionally it's horrible, but often it's okay-ish. But that taught me that if I would do this for a real client, so not me pretending to be a real client, I could automate most of it except for briefing. So we created three super strict formats. So one is about product promotion. One is I make an instant recipe for someone who asks for an instant recipe, which has an image and a description of the recipe, and obviously Stokers is there. And the last one is no matter, just see what you do as long as it's about gin. And this last a format doesn't work at all because it's totally uncontrollable. You have no idea what comes from it. From a brand perspective, it's horrible. But the other two, they are kind of, or not kind of, they are very controllable because I can define really clear what I want it to be, and I can define whether very clear whether it's not that or whether it is that. So if it meets the so by starting at the department level, basically, it taught me a lot about what could and could not I could and could not automate. And at the moment, we still see in our daily practice, if you start with, which is kind of what we see everywhere, start at automating the jobs I do or the task I do, then we just get a faster me and not something which is fundamentally different. And so we built this 2 years ago, and again, it needs some love, and we will get to that, and we'll make it more interesting. But what what that taught us basically is, if in understanding how change could be and where you could go and what could be possible, it is super important to leave behind in the first phase and what you do. Obviously, you need to understand what people do, and then you will find yourself in a situation where most of the well, knowledge work, people can't really explain how output comes to be. We just know whether it is there or not, and it lives up to expectations or not. And most of the time, those are not really clear either. But so optimizing oneself or task within your own job will not get you any further, basically, because it will just make a faster you or a faster department or whatever. And so with that starting point or insight, it's not very much of an insight, but it's kind of defining. We were looking for, okay, how can we get people to talk about possibilities based which were created by AI if people don't really understand what AI is? Because it still is, and it certainly was back then, this magic thing that if you don't know what you want, you just ask the machine, like a I don't know, like someone who has a magical wand and it will know what you want. So we came into the insight that you need something to make something more. I don't know. You need to have a way to get people to talk about possibilities rather than vagueness. And
Mm.
I did this training with a Danish company, design company, and they had this set of. They made a card set which allowed you to talk about AI, because the AI they have, they defined all kinds of what AI could do in a specific use case. And we used that for a while, and then after some time we came to the insight that from a process perspective, it's better to create a set of cards which is more on designed as from a process redesign perspective than the thing we used before. So we made ourselves a set of cards which has 6 categories, and each category has an explainer, but they basically allow you to talk about what the machine should do in a certain phase or could do in a certain phase of a process. And what you see from down there is that when understanding what is done, what the definition of done is, or what the definition of good is, then you can have a completely different conversation about what people could do and what machines can do. And you can start thinking about redesign completely different. Then you can start thinking about what it means that my output is your input, and normally there's big tension between the quality or the format or the timing of my output that needs to be your input. So if you take away all these hurdles, look at things from processes, so there's a lot of system theory in there, you can redesign in a new way. And fascinating thing that happens there is that if you're not bound by capabilities and what do you call it? The amount of capabilities you have. So availability. So if you're not bound by capabilities and availability in a way that we normally are, then creative solutions to new problems arise as well. So we can if we help people understand what they do and what needs to be done to get to output, and what exactly are the things they do and how they deliver and how they decide, you can get in a situation where you can actually come up with new stuff. And that is, in short, in essence, that's what we try to do at the Only Constant. So we have three three domains. So we have educate, automate, and innovate. So educate, you need to have an understanding of what is possible, what is not. Otherwise, you cannot talk about anything, and you can just people tend to stick with the first use case they find acceptable and stop thinking about what so educate, super important. Automate is the thing we started out with. So making myself a bit more efficient, so I have time to do stuff that actually matters more, or where I can add more value, or whatever you want to call it. And then the innovate is creating stuff that couldn't be done before. And it all starts and ends with having an understanding what these machines or what AI could actually do, so you can create a broader perspective on possibilities. And what I find interesting or fascinating as well. So we've been so my co-founders and me, we've been in digital forever. So and always in strategy and UX roles, and they more than me in UX. I'm more of a strategy planner, but we found in this digital environment that there's a lot of boundaries that are created by the approach we use and the technology we use. So if you have a set of users within any organization, it is super hard for them to think out of, it's a horrible expression, but to think out of the box, because you weren't allowed to think out of the box, because your IT platform wouldn't allow it. Everything you come up with can't be done because it is just not possible in the tooling you have. And if you force people to come up with 8 IDs in 8 minutes, you will find the same ID. So AI here again helps us to get more space and time in this process, so people can actually think about the choices they made, and you can get back to the choices they make, and they start understanding that you can think bigger and broader, and all the ideas you had waiting at the elevator or talking at the coffee machine, you might want to give it a try. And then what just happened last, I don't know, 6 or 8 months, is that the speed with which with which you can create prototypes now, or working proof of concept, or have a UI on it, and getting it in a database, and there's a lot to be said about the quality, and you can scale, and all that is super true, but I can build with my team stuff faster now than I would spend time preparing a meeting. So getting people to understand that you can dream big, and you can fail fast, and you can try things that you didn't even dare to say out loud, but if you spend half a day, you have something which you like or hate, or something in between, you can have an opinion with. So everything we do is based on getting a better understanding on what is possible. So being able to talk about what needs to be done, and getting people, and it's like a big playground, getting people to build stuff fast, have an understanding on whether it works or not, and then think about scaling.
And
I think that's magical.
And I have a copy of your cards
Yeah.
that you've given me in the past, which I treasure. And and here it's some stuff that we already know about. One I've called out, like in the domain of AI decides, is AI predicts future outcomes. That one I would like to, maybe, I don't know, we can unpack that. Spots patterns and trends, categories and labels and data. I think there's a lot of things in here that you used while you're defining, your gin, I think, from your experience. And this is the one half of the conversation of what can AI do. And so this is, AI converts data formats and orchestrates entire processes, escalates to humans, so let's talk about thought provoking. In my experience working with people around the possibilities of AI, the thing that I'm usually slammed up against is, and you mentioned it, was they don't know what they do now. So
Yeah.
actually they're paralyzed by, let's call it knowledge work, and they just go off and do something at some point, at some time, with some input, and they deliver
Yeah.
some output, and rarely do they actually get feedback. They don't even know if it was good enough. Usually constrained by systems and lack of data, so they have all these workarounds, and their life is kind of muddling through. And then you come in and then you say, okay, well, AI reviews guidelines and standards, and they go, yeah, we don't even have those things. So I think um, it's a maturity process of understanding, of being educated on the possibilities of AI, but then there's also a maturity of just understanding self. So like of okay, this is actually what I do. This is actually the value that I bring to this.
Yeah.
Ideally, you'd also be thinking about, okay, this is what I like to do in this as well. Talk about meaning and
Yeah.
satisfaction for the humans involved in this process. Um, how have these been received? Like, in your work, I know this is one tool in your toolbox, but are these
Well,
eye
I
opening for
think
people? Are these like shifting? Are they unlocking things? Or are they? And
the
maybe it was
most
different. Yeah, go ahead.
so the most fascinating thing I think is that conversations become active.
Mm,
And so the fact that you can have a conversation about what actually happens with the people who decide and the people who do, and they stand around the table and having this these tangible cards in their hand, they will move stuff around, and the conversation will change and be active, and the thinking will be different. So I of course we gave this a lot of thought, and of course it's structured super well because that's what we do, and but I'm pretty sure that it doesn't really even really matter what's on the cards. It's just the
mm,
fact that you can have a conversation about them. And there's a huge difference between someone sitting in a room and spending a lot of time thinking, making a deck and say, this is how we do things. And having a starting point of a process. Okay, guys, how does it actually work? And then something will be there. And the conversation that even the and this is nothing new, right? So, but the definition or the writing out on how we get to output gives you way more insight than I would ever have expected. And so the example you just gave is based on the card. So we don't even have guidelines. The reality I see is even worse often because the guidelines they're in the head of the of I don't know the PM or the one who has been at the
yeah.
company for the longest. And if you ask about right or not right, or about escalation, or when do you decide to ask someone else, it is it's all super important, and it is very and they can, if you give them examples, the people can normally say, okay, this would never happen and this is okay. So the decision on right and wrong is easily made, but it's super hard to explain. And what we find in the structure or the approach we have is that it is super meaningful that to understand where those we know but we don't know situations are, because there are a lot of we know and we can explain situations as well. So if you think about redesign, we can redesign the stuff we can be super clear and vocal about, and just use that as input as the vague we don't know. And
It's and some of this isn't new. I mean, RPA, process automation has been around for a while, and
yeah,
what a tactic, and I don't know if you would need to do it now, but and it was in an SAP project, but it was highly automated. Um, Back when I was with LeasePlan, and they were automating the entire ordering process. And when you're ordering a car from your lease company, there's a fleet policy. So some people can order any color. Some people have to order metallic because metallic
Yeah.
has a better residual value and things like that. And what they found, and this was all in Melbourne, in Australia, I was involved in the project, and all of these rules, these business rules, were in people's heads, the account managers and support people. And then, and if you wanted to automate it, basically the drivers were calling and they're saying, "Hi, I'm from so and so, from Philips or whatever, and I need," and these people knew what was allowed or not allowed. And so what they had to do for a long time, everyone had this journal next to them called the OVOT, the One Version of Truth journal. And every time they made a decision, they had to write it down. And this was the only way they were able to really mine the business rules in order to actually automate. Now, I think fortunately with AI, they're usually on a more of a micro basis, and you can really chunk it down into it like a task. But even then, I'm working with an organization, and you're asking, you're just asking them, I'm like, okay, well, you have all of this information, and what is, and what I see is the risk is people are saying, well, I want to go take all the information, put it all in AI and do stuff. And I'm like, but no, like, too much information is going to be an absolute mess. Like, what is the, outcome or decision that you want to optimize? And I really find fascinating how hard it is for people to articulate that. To say, okay, well, what will improve if you do that? And how will you measure or evaluate that? And I think this is going to be one of the critical sort of architectural requirements or capabilities of an organization, is this kind of process design or process understanding. And you do it in an interactive way. So you get people in a room and you with cards and you make it a proactive process. No, fascinating. And this is what the only constant is, because we're diving into the only constant. This is the main mission of Only Constant. And I think you do a lot in retail specifically. Is that correct?
Yeah, so a lot of retail, e-com, and marketing is basically where we grew up, and loyalty, obviously. So stick to things you actually know about, and but that's where we operate. But the starting point here, so it's, maybe I I just learned something about myself, is that again. So the gin, let's make something which isn't horrible. And here is, so previous agency, we did a lot of pitches, and thing with pitches is you create a great future and a great story about what could be, and then you start replatforming and spend $1 million in a year, and then after a year everyone's doing the same thing with the new tools, right? So to-do lists don't really change, and the way the output doesn't really change, the way it comes to be changes, but it gave us the sad insight that we were basically doing just pre-sale theater. And so we make you fall in love, and then we move on and make someone else fall in love. And what we want with the Only Constant is we know we can, and this was all workshop and all co-creation, all understanding. So all the tools you have to create a clear vision of the future and how to activate that. But with the Only Constant, we basically just want to add or connect to the second part as well. So build stuff, the things we dreamt of together. Let's just make it, and stop talking about stuff. Start building. And so if you ask me what gets us excited or out of bed in the morning, is just build cool stuff and see what happens. And the company is called The Only Constant is the Only Constant is for a reason, because the change is what we like. So if it works, if it didn't exist today, we build it yesterday, we build it today, and it works tomorrow, and next week not anymore. we'll just create something new.
Mm.
And obviously you need to be aware of that you need to be aware of cost, and it needs to it needs to bring in some money. So capex and opex super important, your ROI, and then but the starting point is then, and you just touched upon democratization. The starting point is that it has never been as easy as now as to create stuff
Yes.
that works, that you can, I don't know, almost walk around and give it a kick and see whether it still works. Just try to understand things, and that's what makes us stick. So
Now,
build cool stuff.
it's been never been easy, and let's talk about Gen AI in particular. And when I'm presenting and talking about Gen AI, it's it is change management. So a lot of times I say, okay, 95% of this stuff, don't do silly things, common sense. And there are some fundamental differences. And two of those differences, at least, is the emergent bottom up, meaning,
Yeah.
Let's talk about my Australian SAP project. People weren't using SAP at home for fun. They weren't using SAP to plan
Don't they?
their holidays. They weren't designing gin recipes.
Yeah.
So this is an emergent bottom up stuff that these people are using anyways.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, the speed. And so no one implemented SAP with the expectation of using it for 3 months and then doing something else with it. So there's some fundamental differences. Now, I want to turn the page a bit, and we are both members of the Gen AI Circle, and I'll put information on that in the show notes as well. And the Gen
AI Circle,
the Gen AI Circle, that's what it should be called.
I know
it should be called. Okay, we have to make a movement on that. The Gen AI Circle, and we're part of the strategy and adoption, let's call it subcircle or group, and we're working on a playbook. Based on the mission of the only constant and the speed of creation and unlocking the art of the possible, and your educate, automate, innovate. How do you see a collectively written playbook based on experience of a lot of people supporting that mission? Like how what will this unlock is in value for the people you're working with?
Great question. So I think the thing we try to achieve, and I truly believe we are getting quite close, is that it shows you a way to get to it. This is horrible, but forgive me. It shows you a way to get to a desired end state. And what I see in our day to day, so there's a couple of elements which are super important. So the people are super important, the company is super important, technology is super important, and those elements, the importance of if you see change as a set of phases, the elements are they differ in importance each step. And what I see in I know LinkedIn is full of white papers and playbooks and how-tos and all experience. Most of them are super high level, not that practical. So I like the story, but now what is not answered? Or they focus on end state. So I give you a way to get there, and then I do a super simple example. But yeah, so every time a new video model is out, and we show there's people saying, okay, ask me for my prompt, and I will share how to make that ad. And what I find weird about that is that it just shows me, it pretends to be a creative process, but it shows me just the technical process, right? It shows me how to make exactly that, not taking into account whether you would want that, whether it would fit fit your brand, whether it basically would it would whether it would how it could serve your need. Because the reality is that if you are in need for a new video ad, then there's all kinds of stuff you need to take into account. So what we try to do with this playbook is give people a very readable and easy to understand but sound uh, uh, insight in the whole process. Explain where the difficulties are, explain where you will get in trouble if you don't have your buy-in, if where you will succeed if you fix all the problems before. We explain uh, why so many of the AI initiatives fail, and maybe that is not a problem if you understand the starting point, or if you clearly define the starting point and clearly define the end state. So we try to help people to understand how you could get from random let's do stuff to something which is more sustainable and sound, and we take into account there that you just touched it as well. So there is a reality that although people do not like SAP at home and they don't spend their weekends trying to do new stuff, the reality is that they do that with AI. So how do you get all these initiatives from all these people who are often frustrated that they've never been heard and no one understands? I will build it myself. How do you get that in line with what you want? Because otherwise you will lose
Mm.
the if you don't fix that, you will lose the most able and enthusiastic people in the whole change process. So what I think we do is we give you a clear direction on a set of steps to get from beginning of a project to sustainable and make sure that your organization change. We look at that from three different perspectives, and we point out what you should do and what you should have when you start and what you should deliver at the end. So it feels doable, and what I'm kind of proud of is that it is written in a way that you can imagine people reading it on a Sunday afternoon while drinking their slow gin, or in summer
Absolutely.
their stokers, because
It's not,
it's and it is a fascinating topic, and the whole energy
yeah,
of everything is possible as long as you define it is kind of fascinating. So we
it's
try
like
to get people forward.
I'm so much looking forward to this coming out. It is written in a very accessible. It's not like a business narrative like some of those books, which are fun. It's not like, okay, Jack, it's not like, we're looking at these people go through this, but it's written in a very accessible way. Um, what I was delighted by, because I have been presenting this 8-stage framework, and what I was most impressed by was, and it was similar to the result of your cards, is they created active conversations.
Yeah.
People were engaged, and in looking back, the reason or the way that people were engaged, we took this very big, rapidly changing, emergent, not well understood concept, and we gave some labels to some concepts. And again, most 95% of it, I think 90% would be common sense. With change, you would to discover potential before you design the solution, before you build the solution. Now that goes really, really fast, but the principles stay the same. And I think the fact that we've labeled these principles and maybe given people the permission to say, okay, this is what you are used to, just do it in a slightly different shape, and but the concepts are there, and then prove the value, you know um, in stage 5, which is activate, which is the actual run the proof of value before you scale it. And this is something that I think is so important here. In SAP days, I used to work with Bond, the Dutch ERP, and we used to do these conference room pilots midway through these programs. But these were like 2-year programs.
Yeah.
You can condense all this stuff down to a week now. You can build it. You can do a conference room pilot, or basically look at the proof of value on disposable tech stuff you'll throw away literally tomorrow.
Yeah.
Prove that it works, and then you say, okay, how are we going to shoehorn this into our SAP Microsoft stack? This robust stuff. But then those are two different things. Okay, we know how we can use it. We can even use it on the disposable consumer tech now until it's actually live. Or
Yeah.
honestly, your IT department could say, okay, just go off and use N8N for now. Just use the
Yeah.
tool that's
Yeah.
available under certain guidance and things like that. And then, of
Yeah.
course, because of the speed, and this is what I'm, advise. I think everyone knows this by now, but don't invest long term in this stuff. It's so this, the fact that
Yeah.
stage 8 is evolve, which is sunsetting, meaning plan to sunset stuff, plan to to change. Because as you said very, very, I think wisely, and maybe that's the foundation of the whole thing is as people become more aware of the possibilities and those possibilities, and they're becoming more aware of what they do and what they need, their psyche around possibility is going to evolve. And once you start on this journey in 6 months, your people in your company will be asking very different questions about why are we doing this? What are we doing? How are we doing it? What tech are we doing? And that's going to be a challenge for management. And that's going to be just absolutely valuable and glorious because, people want to ask why, they want to create, they want to expand.
Yeah.
And I think this is just unlocking all of that in organizations. And it's going to be an absolute chaotic rodeo, and it's going to be super cool. And, we have these playbooks based on experience of a lot of people in the Gin AI circle and
Nice.
tools. And I think we have to really change that. And like the AI capabilities cards, and there's other things. And they've got people like Maarten around that can help you. Where do you think, I think in wrapping up, one thing I want to say, I have looked at the Instagram of Stokers, and it's not bad. Meaning,
No, it is.
It's a bit quirky. There's a few things in there that are a little abstract, I can imagine, but like every fourth one is just a bottle with a background, that's kind of there. And then there's some, images with fruits and stuff. And then there's a few things that are just like, huh? But it's I've seen worse.
No, totally. And
from professional marketing teams, I have seen a lot worse than that.
You've become Dutch. This is how we give compliments. No, but the thing is,
I wouldn't say I wouldn't drink the gin because I see it. Like would I say I want to drink the gin because I see it? Probably not. But it's I don't know.
No, but the thing I hear you, and I think one of actually, I'm pretty convinced that one of the things why it's still acceptable is that we were quite strict on on defining what it should be. And a fun thing with always on advertising in socials is that if I create very strict formats with the capabilities of the models in mind, I can scale that to the max, and therefore the just see what happens posts are horrible most of the time, or super weird, or no idea where that came from, and the other two are quite good. But we didn't change the model, so again we didn't do anything with it other than launch it. But there's a couple of things that are, from a brand perspective, are very problematic. So there's no consistency there. The way it was set up back in the days, it's like 2 years ago. If I would tell the model not to put bottles in there, it would give me more bottles. It was so branding was a problem. These are all things you can fix now by using better prompts and better models. But the thing I wanted to prove, and why I think it's still acceptable, is because we had a clear understanding what the models could do and what they couldn't do, and a super clear understanding about what a repeatable concept actually is. And
Well,
what I see there, and then I will stop, is even this afternoon I had a conversation with someone on automating or using AI for tasks is only sensible if you can have a very clear understanding what right or wrong output is. If you can't explain to the model what is right, then you will get guesses. And this is in the way we set it up. There's no room for guesses. It's right or wrong and explainable. And that I think that is super important in building anything. If you can't explain what it should be and why you decide whether it's right or wrong, then you might want to look at something else first.
Yeah. To take it at a meta level, you said it's problematic for your brand, and I would even argue that this is now your brand, meaning this is your brand, and the fact that it's quirky and unexplainable, and it's Amsterdam with two T's and two R's, and what the fuck, it's like it's almost so quaint and cute and weird. And I'll put the link into the show notes so people can go check it out and like it. But what you've done, you learned, you did it. And I think
exactly
this is maybe the point of all of this is,
yeah.
With AI, I was doing these intro to AI for non-technical people. I was doing, just in my network, I was doing these free sessions. And one of the things I came up with is, imagine you didn't know what a sunset was, and you could read about it, or you could see it, experience it. Those are completely different things. And I think with AI, you have to do it. And this is why, like myself, I am, still out there playing with N8N and things, and just to do it.
Yeah.
And I would really urge anyone to go out and do it. In the Gen AI circle, we'll put a link to that as well. That's a community of like 300 doers, mostly people who are actually hands-on doing. There's monthly meetups online. People are presenting what they're doing, how they're creating. Playbooks are made from that. It's just a knowledge exchange. There's WhatsApp groups. It's super cool. So I would recommend that to anyone as well. I think last thing is, as this is the first episode of 2026, and we're both playing around this. Any last tip or view or thought of what's happening in this year now with Gen AI? I'm curious if you have a based on what you're seeing, where things will go.
Yeah, so two things. And this has been true for a long time, and it's like second phase of the internet, and when it was so ages ago, when Napster was there was this guy on stage. He said this one thing which I still remember. Is if you want to understand what this technology can do for you, you need to understand how it will destroy your business. And if you truly understand that, then you can think about what you should be. And there was Napster and all the record companies are, oh, it's not going to touch us because people actually like the plastic box and the booklet in it. Well, how wrong were they? And so try to understand what can change, what will happen, so you can understand where you should go. So if what you do becomes of no value, which is not the same as of no, if the things you do where you cannot charge for, or where you cannot send a bill for, you need to find stuff that connect to that, so you can actually stay, I don't know, make some money and not be caught in the race to the bottom on fee level. And so try to understand what will destroy the status quo, so you can understand what to build. And the second one, and I truly enjoy the post of Ethan Mollick, and so look that man up in LinkedIn and read the stuff he does. He asks the most weird questions to AI imaginable. So he had this PhD research and asked an AI to make it into a game which is actually fun to play. And what I learned from that is, if you want to understand what can be done and ask weird questions, find the 7 or 8 year old kid again and ask weird questions and ask it to make stuff. So go out of your comfort zone. There's no, and the fun thing about these machines is that they will give you an answer. and you have no idea what. So make this PhD research and thesis into a fun to play game. It will be something, and by understanding the broadness of the questions you ask, and whatever you ask it to be, it will give you something. It will teach you on. It maybe even train you and understanding. You can ask different questions. You can ask different and bigger questions. And so my can you help me make a recipe that tastes like Dutch summer is exactly that. It makes no sense. Like 2 years ago, it made no sense to ask that to a computer. Like what what
Mm.
what is distilling, what is flavor, what is and suddenly there was something which was meaningful. So ask the weird questions and just spend time trying stuff, building stuff, doing stuff. And it's
Mm.
first of all it's fun, but it will teach you about learning how to ask questions again and learning how to be more creative and break out of the silos we've been put into.
I love it. Maarten Mantje from The Only Constants and .nl and Stoker's Gin, and that's with 2 O's, stokersgin.nl. And I will put the link to this very creative Instagram page that actually I find quite endearing. So I hope you don't change it too much. And
Well,
leaving with these points of maybe understand the risk to you and your business, and to see, like maybe even take a moment and reflect on that, and like, how will this destroy my business? And also have this playful, creative curiosity to discover the unknown in it as well. What a virtuous cycle that is. So it's no, I love those insights. Great. Maarten, any last reflection, last sip of the gin? Or
so buy more gin, and obviously.
Yeah.
No, I think this whole conversation has been about make more stuff, and so that's the only thing I can share with people. Make more stuff. Try to build stuff, and
And
hate it, love it, laugh at it.
to make it more on point, you, listener, make more stuff. Don't tell your people to make more stuff. Don't take your kids to make more stuff. Don't ask, go build something.
Yeah.
You just got, it's just so confronting and enlightening to use your how will it destroy you and get creative with it. I can't touch this stuff without discovering stuff in awe and wonder and horror sometimes, and this is this new entity, this new being in our lives. So go build with it so you understand yourself more, your company more, and the possibilities more. So perfect. And happy new year, everyone. This is the first episode of 2026, and we did it with a cocktail with some lovely gin. And Maarten, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Business Simplicity Podcast. If this conversation resonated, please share it with a fellow leader navigating complexity. Visit ebullient.com to discover how we can partner to simplify your strategy, align your teams, and accelerate meaningful growth.